So, two-sword versus board, right? There are some differences that we need to analyze before we can really break into the subject matter, okay? So, you've got your two-sword fighter, you've got your board fighter. Kira, you grab your shield. You can go two-sword. Here we are. Sweet. Okay. Now, even if they're not lined up to fight, just stand here. What are immediate differences? What's the difference here?
Passive defense.
One has a passive defense. Yep.
One
really
has
simple.
multiple attacks.
Twice.
One has one has two hitty things and one has one. And one has a shield and the one does not, right? Okay? Alright, so something that is a baseline for all of this is that this shield and this other weapon are pretty even trade-off. The benefits one gains, the other one tries to take advantage of, right? The weak parts that one has, you know, the other one takes advantage of, and the weak parts of the other takes advantage of, right? So, as a general rule, the boardman is always trying to take advantage of the two-sword because they don't have a board. And the two-sworder is trying to take advantage of the boardman because they have two weapons and this person does not. Right? And this person has a shield, which stops attacks coming from that side without them crossing their arm over the other or behind the other, right? Right? Whereas the other one can freely go to anywhere easily, yeah? So the benefits, the advantages and the disadvantages are a pretty even trade-off, like once you really get into it, okay? So there is no inherently, depending on some people's opinions are different, in my opinion, there is no inherent, like, one's better than the other. 1v1 spar. 1v1 spar, yeah, right? Yes, specifically 1v1 spar. Okay? Now, in order to, we'll start with two-sword, and we can do like a little breakdown, and then we can break into board. But two-sword specifically, the first thing that we need to nail down is this idea of hand matching. Now, if we're hand matching, if these two are hand matching, all right, we've got the hand matched hand, meaning that you're mirrored, right? So he's got his left, he's got his right, and vice versa. That would be another hand match, right? Right? Now, what does hand matching achieve? What does it give us?
Makes body shots harder.
Yeah, you've seen my videos. Yeah. Right? Okay. Now, if they're both holding their arm up, right, for a fight, in this case, Braun's arm is a little bit further out. What's the closest thing for Braun to hit onto your arm? Outside arm, right? And if outside arm is the closest thing for him to hit here, then what's the closest thing for him to hit on Braun?
Inside arm.
Inside arm, right? Now, if we flip that, right? Now it's flipped, right? Yep. Right? Okay. Now, in order to strike body, when his toe is here, now step forward to where you can strike body, where you can reach body. Okay? Like extreme range. Yep. Right? Okay. So we've moved, as my ass is in the way, we've moved, roughly 12 inches, right? 14 inches, 13 inches. All right, now go to your crossfit. Okay? Now, when you're here, generally, your guys' the same shot is equally open equally close to the other. If outside arm is closer to Braun because his hand is outside his hand, then outside will be the same here. It will be evenly outside to outside. And then flipped, inside to inside, right? Make sense?
Yep.
Okay, so now go to your extreme range on your arm shot when you're holding each other's arms out. Right? All right, now step in this side. Oh. Now step in where you can strike body. Right? Yeah, it's like an extreme range. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so it's not a huge difference, right? But we're talking, 10 to 11 inches versus 13 to 14 inches, right? So what that gap is about, that difference is about that big, which is not a huge difference. Okay? But what that does is it gives you more of an active cushion between being able to fight the arm and being able to fight the body and hit the body. Meaning that if you can stay in an active range where you can combat the arm but not allow them to strike your body, then you can protect your body with your feet versus your hand. And then you only have to protect your hand or your arm with your hand, right? Does that make sense? Does that make sense to anybody? Everyone? Yeah? Okay, good. All right, so as a basic rule, with your two-sorter on a boardman, you're going to be hand matched 100% of the time. If you flip your feet, you just make it that much easier for them to get to your body, which is your weak point in fighting this, right? Because his body is pretty well covered by this shield, by this passive defense, right? Whereas Braun's body is relatively open in comparison. When he's got his guard up, face the group. What's actively open or what's passively open?
Sword side hip.
Huh?
Sword side hip.
Yeah, sword side, but you have to reach for it. But I mean, actively open, you essentially you've got his legs and maybe his hips. His arm is no man's land. His shoulders are a mile behind this shield, right? Even if you went around. With this shield, he's got it projected enough that his shoulders are relatively hard to get to. It's feasible, but it's still awfully hard. Maybe you've got hips, maybe you've got legs, right?
Shield foot forward with this board is pretty nasty too.
Sure.
It opens up the butt a little bit, but it takes this hip away a lot.
Right. Which is the most, the susceptible part, right? Now with your two-sorter, what's open? Your two-sorter and face the crowd. At first glance, you're like, well, everything compared to that shield, right? So your defense has to be a lot more on point with a two-sorter than it does with a board, right? Because you don't have a shield. Right? But the benefit you gain is the simple fact that you have two hands that you can hit him with, and he only has one. So you only have to, when you're fighting a two-sorter fighting a boardman, you only have to worry about this. That's all you have to worry about. This can do whatever the hell it wants to do, and you just got to figure out how to hit him without it getting in the way. But really, there's no danger here. This is the danger. This is what you have to protect against. So even though you're more susceptible, there's less for you to worry about. Even though you're more protected, there's more for you to worry about. Right? So we get this trade-off?
Makes sense.
Right? Okay. Now, I want, let's get you guys a little bit active, and then we'll come back and we'll talk some more. But I want everyone to split up into a boardman and a two-sword fighter, and then you guys can do a little. Okay, so. All right, now we can use this, traditionally I use this for my two-sword class, but we can use this both ways, right? The best way to understand what you need to actively be doing to survive a fight is to understand where the danger is coming from and where it's going to, right? Now, what we spoke about before, where you need to maintain this distance where you can fight arms, where I can fight arms, and you can't hit each other in the body without taking a step, you know, that distance that you want to maintain, it's something that you have to actively do. In those fights that you guys just did, how many two swords got hit in the body? Right? How many boardmen got hit in the body? Okay? So, there are some very simple things that you can do. I've done this drill for a number of years now, where you can actively watch and learn and gauge distance with a step, like in motion. So we're going to start where we can just barely hit each other in the arm, right? So this drill is very simple. On this slanted ground, it makes it a little more complicated. We're going to start where you can barely hit each other in the arm. And one person is going to take a step forward and the other person is going to take a step back. And then you're going to check your distance, right? So Kyril's going to take a step forward, like as he wants. So I want to take a step back and try to get to the same point, right? So that was pretty good. Right? We're basically at the same point we were when we started. Right? Now I'll take a step forward. And he takes a step. Check. So he didn't back up far enough. With the hill, that makes sense, but you still need to think about that, right? Now, the point of this is, without stopping and measuring off like this, what are the odds that if we were within a fight, that he would be like, I didn't back up far enough with that step. Next time I should back up.
Oh, not gonna happen.
Probably not going to happen, right? But if you actively think about it, the likelihood of it happening is better, right? So, as you get better at it, and then he takes a step forward, and I want to try to step when he steps, not after he steps. At the very start, when you're first learning to do it, yeah, step after they step. Like, okay, this looks about right, and then you check. Okay, that's pretty good. And then I step, right? Still pretty good. Right? Right? So, and then you take that feedback, like, all right, well, this is too much. It's too little. You know, what if he steps forward, right? And I step back, and I step really far back. Well, I've moved way out of range. Okay? I've moved too far versus not enough. Right? So, you learn how to step and maintain that distance, so then if you decide you want to move further away or closer, you know, you can, you know, or bring them in closer by stepping further away with a step. Like, you can do that actively. You can make that choice. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right, so let's do that for just a minute. Pair up, really simple drill, step back and forth, look at it. It's really hard to see that. And be like, nah, I control distance pretty well. I think I do a good job. But unless you like stop and you do it, and you're like, man, even if it's a small detail, you know, honing in on that will improve your game, right? So as we move through this, I mean, you can take, I've taken that simple drill, and it's a fencing drill, but I've taken that simple drill and you continue to advance it. So once you're to the point where you're doing like a step and checking distance, you know, then you go to like a step with a strike. So first here I'll take a step with a strike, and you and I back off, and then I step and strike, and then he backs off, right? And we've already closed distance quite a bit here, right? Right? Now in the motion of a fight, that is going to happen because you cannot keep track of everything all at once. You try, it's very hard. But this drill, so you can do that slow and you can check distances. You can do this drill where it's a very quick and there's no stopping and it's very fast. So first hero would go, and I go, and he go, and I go, and he go, and I go, and we go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And you learn to not only when you take a closing step, you need to be able to move back out very quickly and easily. So if you take a closing step and all your weight's on your forward foot, or you take a forward step and all your weight's on your back foot, it's incredibly hard to move then, right? So if you have your weight equally distributed, you can move back and forth, you know, at will, right? Which is something you need to train. And so you can quickly escalate that drill into that application, right? Just So, when you're fighting single sword, which the bare basics of two-sworder on a boardman, the single sword is essentially where the start fights. It's a hand-matched single sword fight. That one person has a sword in their other hand, the other person has a shield in their hand. So the closest hand to the sword side of the boardman is going to be that single sword fight. After maintaining distance, like we just talked about, so your body stays out of the fight, and you're protecting your body with your feet, you need to worry about which two things? Where are the two places they can hit you?
So your arms and your legs?
Well, your arm, right? Because
Yeah,
for
arm.
him to hit me in the leg it'd be like hitting my body. If I'm staying far enough away, that's very hard.
Okay.
So you can hit two locations.
Outside or inside arm?
Right, outside or inside arm, right? Outside or inside, right? If my hand is outside, that's the danger, right? Very low likelihood that Tyrell's going to try to come around my arm too, right? Without doing something, they try to move my arm in first, right? My arm is inside. Danger is outside, right? Pick up your board. Tyrell has his board, and I'm the two-sworder. And I'm maintaining distance, so Tyrell has a really hard time getting to my body, but can strike my arm. And my hand is inside, the danger is going where?
Outside.
Outside. My hand is outside, the danger is going where?
Inside.
Inside, right? That's simple. So if I bring a second sword into that equation, my first sword needs to block the most dangerous thing. With his board being in the way here, the most dangerous thing is most likely, especially if I put my hand on the inside, going to be the outside. Right? Even if my hand, unless my hand is like really far outside, he's not going to want to reach out here to get my arm. Right? He would rather swing to my inside arm. Right? So, but if my hand is within his hand at all, then it's a really safe shot for him to come outside. So defending the outside is generally a really good tactic, especially because I have old trusty righty back here that's going to cover the next danger zone. So like I said, so if we've covered our outside with our initial guard, and this becomes the danger, then your second weapon is going to cover the danger. Okay? All right, make them reach around your gear to get to you. All right, now you, as a two-sworder, you can do that strategically with purpose. All right, so if I've had my hand on the inside, the danger then is the outside. You know, so maybe I'm going to bring my hand over here. So this danger to this side has something in the way already. Right? As an example. Okay? Right? So you create a passive defense that initially tries to force the boardman to come around you. Now, boardman has this board, so they're always going to be happy to come around and try to get in close to you because they've got this board protecting their body, right? And protecting their sword side arm. If a boardman is fighting correctly, at least from my perspective, you guys can speak on this some more. I think a board's job is to protect the sword arm, and your feet's job is to protect the body, right? But if a boardman is kind enough to step close enough so that I can hit them in the body, I need to be protected when my body is within range. So anytime with them, and this should be a basic like stepping stone for any type of fighting. We talked about it in the previous class. If my arm is within range, then I need to have a weapon in between his weapon and me at all times. If my body is within range, that's only okay if I have a weapon in between him and me. Right? Right?
Yeah.
You gain free action with any of your gear if I have one of my weapons in between his weapon and me. As a two-sworder, I need one piece of gear out of the way. Then this hand has free action. It can do whatever it wants. As long as this stays in the way, I'm safe. right?
Okay.
Right? Free action. This doesn't need to be anywhere. Right? But if I'm, say, here, then this hand has to be in the way. Right? As a boardman, if that shield is between both of my weapons and him, then he has free action with his weapon.
Yeah, I was way behind.
Right?
I didn't even shoot my second one. I was like, this would be my new archery shot.
Now, you can do this even as a boardman. It's you need to learn to do it also like as a single sword, and let your board be kind of like your safety measure.
Yeah, like,
You know, there are ways. So, say for instance, if you swung crossbody like a chop, right? In this case, right, he's got his sword in between both of my weapons, right? And his shield is not doing anything for him, right? Now, say with a single sword, if his shield is between this sword and him, and he say, you know, he can throw here, right? And that's a super safe action, right? If my weapon strikes his hand and this weapon's over here on his shield, he has free action, although he just moved his hand out of the way of my weapon. So do that without moving your hand out of the way of my weapon. So, there you go, right? So because he's 100% protected, he's got free action with what this is happening while this stays in the way. Does that not make sense?
Sorry, he's got free action with what?
With his sword.
With my sword.
So like if I'm single sword and he throws down arm, right? As long as my weapon stays in the way, you know, like I'm 100% safe. I have free action with this.
Because my return is going to be going into his hand.
Right. So if he throws like cross arm here, just like throw it deep like you wouldn't normally do it. Sorry. Yeah, there you go, like that, right? Now I could throw this as a free action with my hand in the way, right?
and what you do, you pop,
Does that make sense? So as a boardman, you're going to be looking for opportunities like that all the time because you have two things of the person can swing at you. You know, you got to be. It's very rare that you have your shield blocking both swords. So you're looking for opportunities where you can capitalize on keeping your hand safe at all times while still striking them, right? But as a two-sworder, there's no better way to learn where the danger is coming from than fighting single sword against a boardman. and just the same, there's no better way fighting a two-swordman as a boardman, you know, either single sword or with a little tiny buckler or something to understand like where that danger is going to be coming in when they've got two weapons, right? Although it gets a little more complicated than a board. So, as a two-sworder, what you can work on specifically to improve where you need to have your passive guard or where you need to move and where the danger is coming to, by fighting a single sword on a boardman and just exploring it and seeing where you get hit. You know, like if I throw here, I get struck down arm. So okay, well maybe I need to change that. I throw it here instead. Like now I'm in the way. You know, now I have some different options. Right? If I lunge for a hip, you know, extraordinarily likelihood I'm going to get struck down arm, right? So how do I get to this without being dangerous? Right? Right? So, you, the two-sworder, you're going to go single sword against this boardman, and then we'll flip-flop. We can slaughter each other a little bit. Okay? All right, let's pair up and do it again.
Running the flow side attack, where you're perfectly spacing to throw back into the game.
All right, what do you guys
So the
think?
board doesn't matter.
What did you notice?
There's a lot of defense and it's pretty infuriating for doing the right move. It's really good.
Anything else?
Boardmen start opening themselves up when you're blocking them out. They start throwing deeper and exaggerating.
Good. They want to go around your guard, right?
Yeah.
They go deeper and one further outside, or further inside. Okay?
If they cross on you, you should destroy them.
Yes. If they cross on you, you shoot them. And you do it safely. Anything else?
For some damn reason, I want to move forward. I shouldn't be moving forward. Just keeping my weight in forward direction with the single stick, and then it's just so easy to get around that. So
I don't know if this is the person that said, but noticed that for boardman returns, it tended to come from the upper quadrants as opposed to the lower ones.
Sure. Sure.
That back end's a nice shot.
Oh yeah.
When you're the single sword fighter, it's really easy to overcommit to a block.
Yeah. 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 But that's a useful tool, right?
Yeah.
If you can get comfortable fighting and, you know, a boardman with your left hand, it's going to be a huge step forward for you in fighting in general. You know, to be able to fight two sword against the boardman. You know, then you work in your other hand. Then you're identifying, like, all right, if I throw outside, you know, I die a lot when they return down arm. Well, now that's where the danger is. That's where my other hand gets to come in. So when one hand is striking, the other hand is protecting the side. Right? Right? See what I'm saying?
Yep.
So you have your other hand, and you can go and you change it back and forth as to whatever hand is the hand that you want to aggress with, what hand you want to kind of become that umbrella. As you fight, I'm going to let these guys speak on boarding, because they're much better at board than I am. However, when you're fighting a two-sworder on a board, as you attack and target this sword arm more and more and more, or even the sword side, this shield is going to cheat further and further and further over, right? And it's going to protect that arm more and more and more and more. Now you need to treat this person like an old-style typewriter. And as you work their shield further and further over, they're going to cheat this over and over and over again. Eventually you got to hit the return button. This thing's going to come back. Okay? As you're typing along, it's going to move along, and then you hit your enter, and it's going to come right back to the right as you come back to the side, right? So your right hand becomes this like check for their shield, because their shield is always, well, when you're fighting a right-handed warrior, otherwise it's your left. So this hand is going to be essentially, yeah, but it's going to keep the shield honest. If you find yourself, you know, once you've really worked this arm, you're like, man, he's not giving me anything over here. Like I can't get to anything. Well, then you're like, all right, well now I need to reset it. Like, I gotta bring that shield back. So when that happens, when you bring that sword to this side, now you've totally changed the dynamic of where that danger is coming, right? Not only are you throwing the body, so you gotta be closer, but now your right hand is like way out in front. Meaning your left hand is doubly important that your left hand is then in the way. Right? Because not only can he strike at me, he can also poke me, he can do all kinds of stuff. Like I need to keep this hand in the way. Until I bring this guy back. You know, then I can go back. So there has to, but it becomes a seamless transition. Right? So you keep this hand in the way as you go back and forth. Right? Does that make sense?
Are you allowing your hands to cross the center line?
100%. I didn't used to, but now my hands are all over. Okay. As long as you're not impeding the hand you're trying to do shit with, you're okay. Great question.
Did you guys all hear that? Do you know what it means? Honestly, it's okay if you don't.
Explain, please.
I missed the first half.
Yeah, go ahead and explain that.
So Material asked if he allows his hands across the center line, right? No, this is not a secret. So Pete used to not let, like at the foundation, he never wanted his right hand to cross over, like past the center line, and left hand vice versa. What he's saying is he shifted that over time, as long as your hands are working how you want them to be. So like, it is a simpler thing. Like when you're first starting out and you're trying to get good at flow, if that keeps you home and safe, inherently that's probably going to keep you a little bit safer, but you're not going to have as much offense either, right? So that could be a good building block, but as you work into it, you're going to find, like, I just can't get past the shield unless I really commit to something. The important part is if you do that, the other arm has to do the right thing too.
Yeah. I think that, like, the way I fight two-sword, like, that works for me, I think, because when I fight two-sword, I fight much more defensively. So, like, I basically won't let my first two knuckles of my hand cross my sternum, put my sword in.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, but anymore, I mean, especially when I'm fighting other two-sworders, but anymore, I mean, I'm totally not afraid to be.
Okay. That makes, yeah. Cool. I see what you're
So
saying.
as long as this hand isn't impeding this hand from doing what it wants,
You're like, whatever.
right, then it doesn't matter. What's more important is that my gear is in between his weapon and me. You know, whether it's this sword in between or this sword in between. I want to try to find my free action. Okay? What are you guys talk about board? I have talk about two swords.
All right.
Where do you start? Like, start with
You want us to talk about, like, how we use the board or use the board?
I use a board against two swords.
So the big notice is, like, the good thing about this is I fight almost, I mess around with strap, but I'm a punch shield fighter. Material's the opposite, right? So I will say that any class, I don't care how much you worship Peter, take the tidbits that are relevant for your thing, this is relevant in a minute. As Peter's Squire and Bell, and then and he knighted me in Belladark, and then I was Squire and Amphgard. I got into his hand matching stuff, and I was like, why is he just stomping me into the dirt? And I'm like, oh, I'm playing his game. The key to any class, not just this class, is like, what 1 to 3 things work really well that implement into my style? Where I'm getting at with this is I am not like in the house of hand match 100%, but I actually do that methodology when I'm fighting a Florentiner and I'm a border, and vice versa. This is where I take this because, so if I'm fighting Peter, and I know he's a really good Florentine fighter, and I know, you might not always know this about your opponent, but I also just happen to know that he's right hand dominant, right? So as I'm like, my game with this is the worst thing that I could possibly do is come this way on him, in my opinion. Because I'm giving him, I think, the most advantageous position for him. So what I do, buy into the hand matching methodology with this, is I try to turn this solely into a fight for this outside lane, just personally. So my goal, and this goes into all the drills we've talked about so far, is how we were talking about moving like vertically. I call this moving in an eye. Now when I'm fighting Florentine, I almost, not that I won't throw other things, but I am going to come out here and I'm going to test how much can I rotate out here. You know, like this. That's what I want. That is like my prime scenario. Is I want to rotate out and I'm only going to fight that left arm. What this accomplishes is if I'm doing this right and we're doing the pacing thing, his right arm is all but out of play. Like he might have an inside return here, but especially as a punch shieldman, my goal, he might have that, but if I rotate out right, I'm just literally, I'm getting away from that sword while I'm attacking this one, forcing him to try to block with it and trying to stay out of range of this one. Does that make sense? The worst place for an enemy to be is in here, or maybe even over here, because it's harder for me to attack over here, right? I mean, you want to go into if you do anything different with strap, or is that pretty much?
I do something that's similar, yeah. So if I fight two sword, it's the only time that I'll project my board away from my body. So I'll kind of stand here like this, and I'll just put my sword like that. So I'm kind of threatening, like, if you step towards me, I'm going to skewer you, right? So this stab threat is kind of always there, and I want to try to gain control of the inside, because I want them to throw reps that are going to go around my equipment and be slower and easier for me to read. So I might be here and just try to throw stuff like this, and if I can't get this arm, I'm mostly trying to fight their front hand, right? So as soon as I can get that arm to come out, that's when I'm gonna close, and I'm gonna try to get as close as I can to the two-sworder, and I'm going to isolate this arm while getting both swords on this side of my body.
What's the key difference there as far as, so stylistically, the reason Tyrrell might be wanting to do that, he has more passive defense with a strap shield, but less offensive opportunity, right? So this is going into like gear versus gear. My punch shield, I have less passive offense in the sense that like it is easier for potentially, especially a high-end Florentiner, to get me to move it a little bit. Like as a punch, I kind of fight punch like a strap shield in the sense that more or less, I kind of stay here. And the big thing is when I'm fighting Florentiner or anybody, my elbow, what I see a lot of fighters do is they kind of do this, right, with a punch. Can everybody see that? This is like the worst thing you can do with your punch shield, because once I see you have that, I can get that elbow with like not even that deep of a wrap, right? So if I, especially when I'm fighting a Florentiner, but anytime I'm fighting, I'm keeping this, but it is projected out more than even Tyrrell's projected like strap shield. He's wanting to get in like that because there isn't a piece of the equation where he has great passive defense with this, but it does also limit his opportunities. So he's trying to be safe, but get into like the position safely where he can get, and he might want in there. Not that I never throw in here. Like what happens is if I'm like, okay, I just cannot get this, I cannot get this, maybe one of those just does turn into like a stab. But the key is, this is so fundamental with that foot drill and the hand matching drill, is whether you're fighting Florentine or you're the boardman in this equation, spacing, and this is all fights, but especially in this with a different like trade-off as he was talking about, maintaining that spacing, and especially you could almost pick without even watching the swords who's gonna like, you know, whatever, first to 10 or like the majority of fights, who has the lateral movement, who's controlling the lateral movement of the fight, and who's controlling that spacing, and you can probably determine who's winning the majority of the fights. So I call that controlling the fight, but it's really like controlling that spacing, and then everything flows from there. I mean, there's other options, but Lucy hit on it a little bit earlier. The one thing that I just really, really recommend, now there's rules, and then an exception to the rule works 5% of the time, because if we start playing this crazy mental chess game, we've been fighting for 2 minutes and neither of us have hit each other, then it's like, I'm just going to throw something because he would never expect me to throw this. So the point of that is, yeah, you can do this, but I recommend you don't do it 99% of the time, and that is this. Yeah, don't do that. Everything is there, right? So if, as a boardman, no matter what I'm using, I immediately when I come to this fight, I'm like, I'm not throwing high and across, or I'm just not throwing across, right? So like, even if like what Tyrrell's saying is you're coming in, I'm still he would have to get so out of position, like somehow I'd have to get both his hands like down here or something crazy for me to be like, all right, I'm coming over here. I'm not saying a situation doesn't exist, but as a rule, take this out of your repertoire if you're a boardman going into a Florentiner. Because you'll see those fighters that are like, that's like their main bread and butter shot no matter what they're fighting. Maybe they haven't fought a Florentiner a lot, and they're like, oh, what just happened? I threw my shot and I just got obliterated. Yeah, you got anything on that? Like, not just specifically on that, but
Yeah, no, I mean, it's like, as a boarder, I am never going to reach for a back body on a two-sworder, and I'm always going to try to take an arm and isolate it, or try to get both of them on one side of my body. It is like crucial that you need to take one of those away from them as soon as you can. And the reason why I like to be close is because usually it's like, if I can get one of those swords, like if I can get that front sword away and out of the fight, me taking that angle and being close, I can keep that sword kind of away from me and just get my easy kill, right? But like safety is paramount, like that's what you want.
Yeah, and I would say that, granted, everybody knows that I have a favorite shot, but I highly recommend that if you're not a person that throws, like when we were talking about the foundational shots this morning, if you just naturally don't throw a good flat wrap or even a slightly deeper wrap, I just think it's such a useful tool in this matchup, because if I'm blocking with my board properly, sure, I'm not saying you can't get a chop or something, But these chops it's kind of more of a 50-50. If I can somehow get him, and I can throw out here, this is way more advantageous to me than any kind of really chop. I mean, you could sit here and try, but the problem, what's this? Like, see, he's coming over, you know? Either or. Like, he's got options, right? I just don't like this. Like, I'm actually very, even if you're going to go for
the deeper your cover.
the
Where you like, if you break it down, he's actually like wrap shotting his own shield. Like he's got his arm completely hidden behind the shield.
So, and I don't even always project it that much. I'm kind of overdoing it for you guys because if I have a step in it too, like sometimes I do a lot of like little pumps and stuff too. So if I was known for like this back in the day too. So you can do little things just like boom, boom, boom. Okay, I've got his arm. Here I am. He's armed now. This is worth noting. It's not, if you're trying to win a fight, for some reason, even when some people get this action, boom, I get his arm. Let's not get crazy here now and try to do something silly because he has one sword. Like a lot of people, now it's his fight to lose. He has one sword, right? Rather than just sit there and like do something crazy, you can also just back up. All right, he's got one sword now, you know? But the other thing that I will do is if I know, a setup that I can do is if he knows I want that, maybe what I'm doing is I'm gonna come in here and like just try to get the sword just a hair higher and then, right? So I love the hip scoop wrap in general. But either way, those are kind of my two, like I'm saying, if you don't throw, the arm is more of closer to a flat wrap. The body, if I can get his hands like somewhere close to his chest, like if his hand's around his hip, I'm like, okay, I want this arm, you know, I want this arm. But if I get his hands high and they get up closer to his chest, then I'm like, there's that, you know? So that's really, I mean, there's a lot of other stuff, but those are my two like safest openings. What I'll say, what Peter was talking about with the leg shots, if you want to throw leg, the absolute worst thing I can do against a Florentine or two, well, second worst, this is the worst, is especially if you're already like a taller fighter, don't give up your advantage by doing this as much as possible. Instead of bending at your hips, give your knees a little bend. So if a plane change, height-wise, a plane change here, if I did want to strike a leg for whatever reason, like he's blocking everything else out, I'm gonna plane change into here because I'm taking away his mobility and I'm like, okay, where's he? I'm not going to do this. Does that make sense? He's going to back wrap me every time. And you take that even if you're not fighting a Florentine, you're like, this is just generally a bad habit. Those are kind of my three, like, shallow wrap forearm, because I guess 4 would be a stab, an inside stab, right, if that's there. But those 4 shots, honestly, you're going to be, so we'll just go through this stab, like whatever, if that gets open, this shallow wrap, the deeper wrap, and a plane change leg, whatever it might look like. Those 4 shots, honestly, are going to get you a really, really long way. I would say that's a good place to start. And then if you're just fighting a phenomenal Florentiner, then that's good. They're going to push you to develop a 5th, 6th, 7th, whatever. But that's like already a pretty deep foundation. Just touching on equipment. How many people are like, if you're fighting shield, are primarily punch? Okay, and what about strap? So it is about half and half. I do think the fight changes. I'm not going to deep too much into the strap, but like what Tyrell's talking about is because you lose the mobility of the shield, like it is easier for me to take risk with a punch, but risk reward and like vice for them too, right? So, yeah. Did all those shots make sense and like why the foundation of that? That's kind of my foundation for when I'm fighting a Florentiner. Are there any specific questions about those shots? Does anybody have any? Okay.
Actually, sorry.
Yeah.
Question over here. So, I mean, what do you do if you're Florentiner? Like I noticed you're stepping to the side to like really go after that arm. What if they just like keep stepping with you and they're really good about it?
What is like the longest like fight you've ever had with somebody? Like what? Okay, not even longest. What is your average like when you go to bout somebody? What do you think it is?
5-ish.
Yeah, it's not long, right? So like, and like a warlord level caliber fighter, like or like a one, what I call like a 1%er, like a truly great fighters. you know, that's not the majority of the game. So yeah, you're gonna run into those guys that are like, they're trying to control that space. Like if Pete and I, like, we start to just go over here sparring, like one of us is probably gonna have a majority second, the other one's gonna start counting, and we're gonna kind of go back and forth, right? But if I run into these things where I'm like, man, I just can't hit him with what I want, like what you're talking about.
I can shoot a target center.
The reality is that at some point somebody's gonna have a mental lapse, and it's like, this is where I'm talking about, like, this is one of the only times where I really do this matchup, is where I kind of really do fall into that hand match. But this is where, like, exceptions come in, and like what you're asking, like, what do you do? I mean, my thing is if I'm coming out here and I just can't get it, and I like eventually something's gonna open up, and that's where you a combo too. So one thing I do is, like, I'll come, you can start to like really get, so one thing I do a lot is I trace this tip down, right? And you see I'm keeping my range. I know where I'm at, and I see he happens to be wearing his watch band. That's right about where my sword's at, right? So one thing that I'm really common for is, like, you can bait this stab, boom, pop down, and then violence to action, like very quick second shot. I promise you, if you do you throw fast combos? Are you working on that, or where do you think you're at with that?
I'm not great at combos with sword and board.
Okay, so we're taught, all those examples I gave first are like a singular shot, but the so what in the answer to your question is, that's where you start working in doing, like, mixing up different, like, 2-shot combos, or because show something else, a small feint, a small bait,
Disguise your objective.
disguise it. Like, there are so many, just with those 4 shots and little pumps, baits, feints, there is, you're starting to get into math where it's like there's 120 different possibilities here. I'm just saying that number, but like you can really start to open things up. And the key is what your question alludes to, which I think is a very important point, is the key is your end objective is you want them to lose their cool before you do. You want them to lose their home before you do, right? So, like, it's a little bit of a chess match, especially in this matchup. Like, board v board, we can do some crazy stuff because we do both have some passive defense. But if I don't stay home, especially against Pete, that right hand is coming home, you know? Like, so I am extremely patient in this matchup. If I'm truly, like, if we're trying new things, trying to fun, that's one thing. But if I'm really trying to win the fight against him, I'm staying home. Like, I don't care if it takes me 5 minutes in this fight, you know? Like, I'm just hoping that he messes up before I do. It's not an amazing answer to your question, but take your time, be patient with that fight, and just start to add in little feints, baits, and, like, that's just one example. Like, a not great Florentine, or I will say this, Florentine, great sword user, whatever, a lot of times a stab is open. So especially if you're doing multiple fights, this is a great way to open up that outside, is by catching them with one good belly stab. People don't like getting stabbed. I don't know what it is. It's like demoralizing, and sometimes it hurts worse, especially with an amp stick. So if we're doing like a set of fights and stuff, if you want to open up this inside, kind of similar to what Pete was talking about, like return them back home, is that's kind of a return shot, like boom, they don't like that. So then you fake that, that becomes, does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, it seems like the answer is, like, yeah, if you're repeatedly trying something, like, you actually just have to, like, do something else, or like fake that, like, you're gonna be something else.
Yeah, and like there's two, like this looks as if like I'm always trying to land. That's not necessarily the case. I might throw this shallower just to make him think that's what I want. So like I was like very committal before, but what if I'm like, well, let me guess what his response is, right? The only time I'm gonna throw here, this is a good point. So would be an exception to the rule, and I do throw this shot, is if I'm here and he blocks out, if I can get that, I'll throw that. But the reason being, if I want to target, this is a good point, this is my shot for this, and it's only, you see where both of his hands are? If I can get both of his hands over there, boom. Because even at worst, if I get his arm, I already have a good retreat lane. So my plan is already, like, I have an out, you know? Yeah, so there's 100 different things you can do.
Yeah. So with my strat, like kind of like Brian was saying, I can't be as mobile with it. So the reason why I project it is because if I hold this flat, right? If I'm like trying to come in here and work the inside, you know, I'm trying to get in here. Like I will not throw at this hand usually, right? And because I'm projected, it kind of takes that hand away from me, right? But if I were to keep this here and I'm trying to fight here, he's gonna reset the punch fighter, right? So projecting that board out keeps that right hand from killing me, right? And having this here, my hand, like when I'm trying to work this inside, I'm keeping my hand close to my board, right? I'm not coming out like this, trying to do that, because then that hand is just gonna take my arm, right? Especially if I'm like trying to just chop this, he's just gonna take it. So I try to threaten with a stab, because a lot of the times, like, I feel like when people are kind of learning Florentine, they're kind of like accuracy by volume, right? So they're going to try and swing a lot at you. They're going to try and get close to you so they can use that right hand. So having this presented here, like, just kind of keeps them from crowding me, right? Because I want to keep control of this inside, and I want them to throw big wide wraps around me, right? So if I can get them to, if I'm going to throw on the inside and they come out with a wrap, okay, like if I can take this wrist and now that weapon's gone, right? So I'm going to crowd him and hit him in the leg, hit him in the arm. But keeping that hand out of the fight is super important. That's at least how I'm trying to play.
Yeah.
So despite, just this is worth mentioning too, I fight punch, Tyrrell fights strap mostly.
Yeah.
I'm a wrap fighter. Tyrrell is more of a chop. Not, we can both do both, but he is more of a chop fighter, and he uses a flat blade a lot of the time too, especially in other games. The reason I say that is, like, identify whether you are a punch shield or strap shield. What shots are you comfortable throwing? And if you are comfortable throwing those wraps, like, maybe you take a little bit from me. If you're like, man, I'm really way more comfortable throwing those chops, because what Tyrrell's doing, he wants Pete to throw wraps so that he can just chop in, right? I want to so Tyrrell wants Pete here, I want Pete here. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And why which one would be a wrap and which one would be a chop? So identify not only your equipment, but where do I want my opponent so that I can throw the shots that I'm most comfortable with? And whichever the answer is in your head, use that, like, or a little bit from both. Ideally, you'd be great at both, right? That's kind of the. But we all have strengths and weaknesses, and it's like, know who you are as a fighter and what can I exploit.
So, on that strengths and weaknesses, it seems like both styles have very clear counters to control what the opponent has to offer. Would you say that due to the asymmetry that there is a natural advantage to one of these styles over the other? Or is it just come down to experience fighting that style and range control?
Like, as far as like the way I do it versus the way Braun does it?
Right.
You're asking, is punch better, is strap better, is wrap fighting better,
Yes.
So if you ask me personally, my belief is that a punch shield can be better, but it's risk reward. A strap shield is more static, but it's also, so if somebody's a punch fighter, like, I'm just pretending he has a strap in his hand, but where a punch fighter's weakness is eventually this drops. That's the biggest weakness of a punch fighter, and you punish them there. A sound strap fighter, that's usually not going to be a weakness, right? Because that's going to be covered. That's the kind of the point of using a strap. So a punch, I can cover everything better, right? I mean, and there's a lot of stuff here with, like, the heater versus a round, but I can cover everything better as a punch, but it's also easier to exploit to open up. I'm a punch guy for that reason, but as a strap, if Pete, especially as like somewhere in the 6 foot range guy, with him using a low strap, inherently, this is way more open than this is, right? I think it's a question of, do I want to kind of not completely check out what I'm doing with my left hand? Do I want it to be more static? If I know if I stay within these couple inches, I'm probably going to be pretty good in most scenarios. Or do I want the ability to be able to do more stuff offensively? And that's kind of the idea of a low strap. Like, if you have a mid strap, it's different than a low strap, because a low strap, what it does is, if you can put it in the right place, it covers your shoulder more, but it allows you more stuff under here. I have my own thoughts on that. Like, he's an anomaly. I believe that somebody that is in the 5'10", 5'11", and above range, this is just my belief, you don't have to take it, should not have as low of a strap, right? Because you are already tall, your shoulder is already away. If you go to a crazy low strap, you're overcompensating there and you're opening this up here. Now, granted, Pete, when he fights, if you watched him back when he was a young man, he used to bend his knees a lot more and he'd get a little bit lower, right? Because, like, one of my unit mates, Aiden, he's like 5'7", 5'8", whatever he is. He's a not 6'1", 6'2" guy, and he will use a low strap or even like a low strap dome. That's where it's like, okay, this strap really makes sense for him because his hip's already out of my way, and now it's covering that shoulder, right? But I think that is one inherently better than the other? I don't think so. Like, I'm a punch fighter. They're strap fighters when they fight shield mostly. You know, you've kind of seen a shift. If you went to Amguard 10, 15 years ago, you didn't see very much punch shields at all, right? It was all strap, mostly low strap. Yeah, like sled domes, dome straps. Like, you were kind of a weirdo if you used a punch. Over the last, I've always been a punch fighter, and we've got me, Bell, Nip uses both. There's a lot of good punch fighters too. So I think that just shows us what that does. Is I also think that was an era when people, they were really like, this is the way, and now it's like, no, we've kind of opened that up. That's like that goes with the like cross body line thing too.
I think a lot of it comes down to having confidence in your gear.
I mean, some of you, if you don't pick up a shield a lot, but like I play around with strap, but if I go to fight one of these two guys, I'm putting the strap down, I'm picking up my punch. And like, trust your gut on that. Like, what are you comfortable with fighting and why?
Yeah, because like with when I'm using a board, like Peter's like, hey, like I'm blocking my body with my feet and my shield is protecting my arm, right? My philosophy is that my board is there to keep my shoulders and my arm safe, and my feet are gonna keep my hips and my legs safe. Right? So I am, once that thing, like I have that thing locked in with my lat, right? Like that thing is not moving. Like I'm not gonna move it. Everything, like if you swing outside, I'm gonna turn my hips. Your hips are always gonna be faster than your hands, right? So no matter whether it's a punch, a strap, Madu, whatever it is, like if that's what you use, you have to figure out a way to develop your style where you have confidence in your kit, and like if I put this here, this is what it's blocking, this is what it's not blocking, and you kind of have to like come into your own with that, right? Because not everybody uses the same kit. So like having confidence in your gear is going to take you a long way.
I think it's strap is the safer bet, and I think it's easier to I don't want to say it's easy, but like if you can learn how to stay home, and the other key is there's so many things, but a punch shield can hide not optimal footwork a lot better than a strap shield can. A strap shield is a great tool because it makes you move your feet to get the openings you want. I can create openings with a punch shield because I can move it out of my way and whatever. But I kind of fight with a punch more like a strap. I just every once in a while, I can cast it out a little bit easier. I can, this is my honest take, is both have their ups and downs and like 1v1 or very small field tactic stuff. If we're expanding this outside of like a Warlord-esque tournament, in a field fight, I really prefer punch just because if I have to fight a pole plus, if I'm fighting 3 people and stuff, it's easier for me to be able to specifically cover my legs with a punch than it is a strap, right? Like if you're fighting with a strap and Tyrael, like that, what you don't see is like Tyrael when he's like fully kitted up on the field, maybe we're both wearing threes, maybe he has a 40-inch down stick, he's got his big strap, there's other things you can do to compensate it, but if we're just keeping it clean with like talking about one item, that opens up possibilities for that, like having a punch versus a strap. No, but do I think one's inherently better than the other? No, it depends on the fighter, and it's what shots do I want to throw, because one of the big things is he has better passive defense, but he also inherently has less offense. So it does buy into that kind of hand-matching mentality. It's a lot harder for Tyrael to throw certain things across his body with that big board in the way than with me with my maneuverable punch. It's a lot harder. I don't even know if he really could throw like a true like dark side thing with that board. It's like, it's infinitely harder,
Yeah, like, so he throws a really good dark side, like Kai, with a heater. I can't do it because I think it might be an arm length thing. But like I throw sword side hip with my heater all day.
Yeah.
But like you always project your board. So like how are you dealing with stuff?
Okay, so dealing with other boardmen or dealing with
Two sword.
Okay, so my approach, because I do fight board, and over the course of my tournament history, I've had a lot of success with this game. I fought board a very long time before I ever picked up a second sword. Typically what I'm going to do is I'm going to target the forward hand, measuring, picking the forward foot. If they're bringing one hand past the other, I might favor that one a little bit. But typically I want to isolate one hand, force it either outside and hang it out to dry and kill it. Whether that's soliciting an attack, like something like this, to see if he's going to try to throw, or try to throw over. Anything where I can get them to come outside my guard, try to reach around me, is a success to me. Now, I'll do that in lots of ways, but what always comes back is I want to keep my gear between them and me. So even if I throw to that back hand because it's in front of the other, like I'm gonna have my gear. So right now my sword is in the way of both of his weapons, right? Right now my sword is in the way of this weapon, and my shield is in the way of this weapon, right? Right? My shield's in the way of both, right? Right? Make sense?
Yep.
But I'll target this forward wrist, whichever wrist he has forward. If it's this wrist he has forward, I'll go after that guy. Try to get to him. But I'm doing this in a way that in order for him to actually strike me with any of these, he's gonna have to come around my gear. Right? I'm not doing this like this. Right? Right? So a lot of poking, a lot of threatening of poke. So you're kind of bring your gear down so that you can, if these guys left hand forward like I had when Braun was showing you things, I'll work from inside to outside a lot, same as with that hand. I'll target this little spot here. I'll target this spot here. If I throw out, just like Braun was saying, I'm basically wrap-shotting my own shield, but I projected my shield so that there's really nothing, like no great opportunity for him. Staying as safe as possible. That's the theme, right? You're safe as possible. And I just try to pick at whatever forward hand is there. If they give me the courtesy of coming outside with one hand or the other, that's 100% safe for me. It's very dangerous for them. If they have this other hand, and if they bring the other hand, if they do that and they bring the other hand out, then that shot becomes a little bit different, and I'll go to the back hand, and try to keep my shit in the way, right? Not so much more. Like here, right? There's not a great opportunity for him either way. Right? Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. If they try to come around your shield, even better. Right?
Why was that so good though? So Serial's left foot is forward, and he's throwing a wrap with his right hand. What that does is that straightens this out even more. So Pete's like, that's even better because it's almost impossible to miss the stab. So when you're watching your opponent, is where are their feet, and then if they're trying to throw with the opposite, with that foot back and that, what that does is that flattens their chest towards you. That's like stab territory.
You want to make
either way.
You want to make a T.
Either way. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Because if I rotate my hip, now it's harder to land that stab. But if I come here, it's coming in. So pay attention. Like the key is like controlling the chaos and like controlling the fight is you have to know when to go fury, when to throw multiple shots, and you have to know when to back up and reassess your opponent. Like so many people when they're trying new things, they go in and if they're like A and B don't work, they just kind of pause, right? One thing I would take away from this is if that's where you're at, and like I don't fight a ton of Florentine, but when I warm up, I'm decent with it. And it's because what I do is I stay the same thing I was doing with board. I do the same thing when I'm fighting flow against a board. Is I'm going to fight my fight patiently and just kind of try to stay home like Pete's saying, right? But yeah, I just wanted to point out because he just happened to have his foot back and throwing deep with it, allowing like Pete had that juicy stab. These are just like little things that you got to keep an eye out for.
Any quick questions, and then I want to get you guys actually fighting each other a little bit before we end.
I don't know if it's a quick question, but
Yeah, show your dark side real quick.
So, all right. First things first, strap shields are way better than punch shields. But I have to do some, I don't want to call it fancy footwork, but I can't just, with a punch shield, you can just and throw this and be safe about it. I do it sometimes.
There's lectures.
I can throw.
There's a lectures after dinner.
I can throw a dark side or a cross side chop like under my shield, but I don't do it very often because it puts me in an awkward position. For instance, if I want to throw a cross side chop underneath of my shield, I have to do this. My shield guards my backside shoulder, so my right-handed shoulder. Right? This allows me to do this. I can also throw a dark side underneath of it. Yes, my arms are pretty long, but I don't do that very often. Instead, what I really like to do is I like to use my footwork to put myself in a better position to throw a dark side without putting my hand underneath of my shield. For instance, if I want to hit the dark side, I'm more likely to engage them and position myself either on their right side or left side and throw where I don't have to put my hand underneath of my shield. And I can keep my hand and my arm covered by the edge of my shield.
That's how I threw mine.
And then use my footwork to cover my weaknesses. So over here. So that's how I do it with a strap shield. And what was your question? Works out.
do you ever find it to be advantageous or worthwhile to use when you're doing Florentine, to use it to try to manipulate your opponent's shield?
Meaning like try to physically move it?
Yeah, so like with a punch shield especially where it's kind of like on that like hinge.
Sure, but you have to do that. You have to do it. You have to do it so that your gear stays in between. You know, a lot of times when I see that, and a lot of times I see that and people will do like one of these numbers, and then you move your gear out of the way, right? If he catches this block, you're toast. Say if you do that instead, you can just be like that. You're much higher likelihood of you living because your sword is already sort of in the way.
Okay.
Right? But if you're doing it like this, I mean, you're just you might as well give it away. But you can do it. You just got to learn how to figure out how to do it safely.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions, real quick? All right. Pair up with somebody you haven't fought yet, and so hopefully you can take a couple things and you can apply them to what you do, and you can improve your game. Does anyone have any questions after trying to apply any of that stuff? Anything they found extra successful or extra deadly? Boardman,
yeah.
Did you notice anything extra deadly?
Fighting outside, like turning them, fighting the arm specifically, lots of great success with that.
Good.
Staying very safe.
Good.
Two sword versus board, you need lateral positioning, and you need to be in a close enough range to land the shots that you want.
Yeah.
Or if you are threatening to get to there in order to get them to move their guard.
Okay.
There were it helps sometimes to like feign. I think like you're gonna do one of these and then just like like it depends on the person, but it can move their like guard over because they're like, oh, like this is gonna be like free over here. You can snap their arms.
Yeah, that's a better answer to your question that you asked me before that I gave. A much more simplified version, which is a good
Practical experience.
Class is working.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Strap shields are not invincible. There's openings even when they're just standing there passively. There is stuff I can hit for, so I should try.
That's right.
Try to draw out a boardman's like sword arm if they're like dedicated to keeping it back is awful.
I love the stab if somebody's doing the like projection with the strap shield. If depending on where their feet are at, you just go in directly underneath it. That's
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else?
It was unique having a flow do a double commit to my sword side. I felt like I had to break the rule and come under and fight across, but it was just interesting having to.
So they double committed to your right hand?
Yeah.
Over.
Yeah, so both their sides are to my right.
Yep.
And so I felt the need to come under shield and hit.
Yeah,
Across.
either that or projecting out into their gear and trying to. You're tall too, so like trying to punish that over top. But yeah, that's where.
I did not feel comfortable doing that. I felt comfortable going under for some reason. Not sure why.
Probably feels safer because you're covered.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're reaching over your gear's not protecting you.
Yeah.
Not used to seeing flow do double commit to defense. That was real interesting. I like it.
All right, excellent. Well, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to
ask Peter.